Okay, I wanted to put a timestamp on this video because I probably won't post it right away, but I wanted to get these thoughts out. Someone had asked me recently, a close friend of mine asked me recently about my journey going from Christian and Christian mindset and kind of releasing myself from that. And that's a big topic to cover in general. So I'm only going to speak from my experience. And I'm not doing all of it right now. Some of it I will and have talked about a little bit on the blog at livingalifeofcreativity.com. And I'll be sure to put those tidbits of information in the description when I publish this. But basically she had asked me, what my journey was like and when I decided to change my mindset. And the answer to that question is a long one. I'll briefly say that when I was around 16 years old, by that time, I had experienced like the heavy religious, I would call it indoctrination of Christianity. Now there are parts of, I'll just call it the faith, because I definitely, what I'm not trying to do is demonize it for sure, because there were certain aspects of it that actually helped me and helped me along in this journey. So I definitely don't want to try to say that all parts of it was bad or anything like that. But around the time I was 16, by that time I had been kind of brought up in, it was from Pentecostal Baptist, and then eventually was led into a more non-denominational approach. And let me just say this about the non-denominational approach to Christianity and in the faith in that way. It was the beginning for me from detangling and untangling other mindsets from previous religious points of views. I'll just say that for right now. So that was when I really started to kind of like, oh, so we can worship this way and we don't have to do it that way. So it was already starting to unravel and detangle around that time. But then over time, you start to see where you've kind of outgrown that version, right? And so that's what continued to happen. So by the time I was 16, I was in the non-denominational space of Christianity and loving it there. It was kind of like piecing together things for myself, just trying to understand what it meant for me and things like that. Heavily involved, youth groups, praise and worship teams, things like that. Music will always be a part of my journey, and talk about that another time. And so by the time I was 16, let me get to the point, I started to feel that there was more to this spiritual journey than what I was experiencing. And so that's when I began on my own. This wasn't prompting by any other adult or any other person other than getting out there and seeing and listening to other material that would pique my interest. And I'm like, a lot of the stuff that they're talking about, like, now, mind you, when I say astrology, for me, a lot of this stuff, like astrology, tarot, all that stuff, at the time I was 16, it was entertainment. Like, and even now as an adult in my 40s, there's a level of entertainment with it, but I'm using it now as a way of another tool to tap into and figure out, hey, what parts of this is a part of me that resonate with me, that I can take with me and move forward in my journey. So for me, Christianity, the faith, the religion, all of that stuff, I'm treating everything that I come into with that mindset. So I'm not trying to hold too tightly to one I'll just call it mindset over the other. I'm just trying to use it to sharpen my own intuition. So the journey started when I was around 16. I hadn't really decided to act on it and really pursue letting go of that version of me, as far as faith and spiritual journey is concerned, until I was mid 30s, I would say. And then by the time, and when I say that mid 30s, that means that I was starting to rethink everything, just everything in general. So fast forward, now that I'm in my 40s, particularly the last 4 years, which that will make me 44, which means when I hit 40, that's when I was just like, I think I'm done with whatever that was previously. And a reset happened. And when I say a reset happened, it wasn't like I just woke up one morning and decided like, oh, I'm just gonna, read horoscopes and get into tarot and things like that. That's not what happened. It was almost like waking up from a dream. I was groggy. I was, and then life was happening at that time too. So there's a lot of changes in my life that happened at that time too. And then COVID and all that thing. So a lot of us, especially during COVID, started to really question a lot of things. So that was like another phase of that pushed me over the hump, so to speak. Then I did something very different last year. And I didn't document it. I didn't talk about it. I started hearing myself say, there is more to me than this version, in connection with my spirit and what I resonate with. And I threw all of, caution to the wind, as they say, and allowed myself to experiment with listening to other points of views. And particularly, I landed in the tarot space. And what I did was I decided to keep an open mind and start listening to people that I found on the internet. YouTube in particular was the best search for me, because I was able to get immediately to, I didn't even know that there was that many people out there that was doing tarot. And people don't read exactly the same. They have their own styles. Some of them are beginners. So I had to kind of weed through and find the ones that resonate with me, which is why there's so many of them, because not all of them interpret in similar ways and things like that. So all that to say, I just started to open myself up to understanding the different levels of how people do tarot. And at the beginning, it felt like entertainment, but there was a part of me that was really drawn to that version of tapping into intuition. Okay, again, this is a tool, not the end all be all, but a tool. And so what I noticed is that whether the person was a beginner, or they were in an intermediate phase, or they were more advanced because they were more mature and had been doing it longer, all of them, the ones that I found and decided to tune into, they all had something unique about what they brought to the table. And that really intrigued me, and kept me motivated and inspired to keep listening and tuning in. And then eventually, after about 6-7 months or so, now mind you, this has been a year of me just listening, tuning in, and listening, tuning in, and trying to figure out who I resonate with the most, the style, the creativity of it all. And you know me, living a life of creativity is just definitely that. Like, anything that's connected to creativity, it's going to light me up. So I found those little nuggets of creativity and how they set things up and how they position their cards. So for me, the scope of everything, of it being a spiritual touch point, the creative touch point, down to the personalities of the people that were presenting, all of that just felt really, really good to me. It felt really, really good. And mind you, some of the things that they talked about, it wasn't all feel good. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring up now, since I'm on the subject, is like, there were times where some of the messaging rubbed me the wrong way. And I had to ask myself, why is it rubbing you the wrong way? Is it because perhaps there's some truth to what's being said that you're resistant to? Or is it just nonsense? Like, it doesn't fit you, or whatever. And in those instances where I felt strongly that there was nothing for me to glean from the interpretation, I moved on, just kind of denounced and just said, dang, that one doesn't fit me. So for whoever that does resonate with, I hope they get this message, because that one did not land for me. But for the ones that felt like, ooh, I might have to do some work here, because that really does feel and sound like me. To me, asking myself those questions and allowing myself to feel uncomfortable in those situations, to me signify that there's something here for me. And so I ended up sticking with it for a year. Now, this is, when I say sticking with it, doesn't mean that I'm about to pull out some tarot cards and get on the internet and start like divvying it up and putting interpretations out there. But because I don't think that I'm there yet. But have I thought about it? I have. And so all I'm saying is, I'm using these types of things as clues and tools into tapping in. That is the number one thing for me, listening to my own self and not always relying on so many things outside of me, which, if you really think about it, like, if the spirit of God, universe, whatever you want to call it, created me, and if you go by context of biblical principles and teachings, lives on the inside of me, why wouldn't I want to do everything that I can, that I haven't already done or tried, to tap into that? So that's the answer, the question and the answer that I got to, that changed everything for me. Now, am I saying that I've got this all figured out and I'm over here living the life of spiritual high and all of that? No, because as a matter of fact, there's more resistance in this journey than there was, when I was heavily Christian only mindset, because I was closed in. I had so many boxes that I bumped into so much. Meanwhile, this journey requires so much more intuition, discernment, because there aren't that many bumping and, I could go anywhere and just go all out. So I feel like this level of my spiritual journey requires more of a disciplined spirit to grow. And that really shocked and surprised me on this journey, because you would think that having more contained structures, mental structures, would keep you, whatever. But anyways, so that's how I got here. This journey didn't just start when I turned 40. It didn't just start when I was in my mid-30s, like I just explained. It actually kicked off when I was 16. So we're talking almost 30 years of this journey already, and I just happen to be where I'm at right now. But if we want to fast forward and say when the crossover happened, I'd say 40, but it started when I was 16. So that's my answer to that question. And so for now, I am right now working on a blog post to talk a little bit about the whole tarot space and why I'm using it as a tool, and just really trying to explain in a brief, concise way. Because I don't know if you guys have ever looked at any of my blog posts. They're not very long and lengthy. I try to get to the point very, very quickly, so that I'm not babbling on to infinity and beyond, because I don't want to do that to any of my audience or my readers. The only time that I feel like I would get really, really long-winded is in videos like this, which is now 16, but whatever, that's what this is here for, and people can decide how long they want to tune in or not, and it doesn't affect me at all. But if you're here this long and you made it this long, I want to thank you for listening. And I always try to thank myself for listening, because I am part of my audience too. And when I create, write, speak, I try to do it in a way that resonates with me too, because that's part of tapping into my intuition, and it's part of me staying authenticity, because that matters to me too. All right, so anyway, I'm out of here. I'm going to finish my coffee in my Aquarius cup, and I'll talk to you guys another time.